In this video, we'll cover 3 exercises and 2 stretches that help me get rid of wrist pain for good. If you're in a little bit of a hurry and you don't have access to any equipment, you don't have dumbbells, you don't have any resistant bands, I would suggest you jump straight up to the last section. It's called novel movements for the hand, wrist, and elbow. And that should be the best bang for buck and the best way to get started. So feel free to go through that, save the video, come back later. And that's it. Good luck on your quest, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so the first exercise is going to be about the forearms. We have 2 variations. The number 1, you're going to take, I think the first time you can do it without any weight. This is the movement that you're going to do. You're going to put your elbow over your thigh. You're going to hold it down to make sure it doesn't do anything like this, and you're going to do this movement. So you're going to kind of crawl down, and then you're gonna get it back up. Curl down and back up. And you don't wanna, you can have like an imaginary line between your elbow and your wrist and then beyond, and the back of the hand shouldn't cross it. So you should not cock it back like this. Like once it gets to this center line, then it stops, it goes back down. One way to think about this, if you would put like a ruler, that would help. I have here like a stick. So you can have something like this the first couple of times until you ingrain it into your head that you're not passing this line here. And so I'm gonna use some weight here, but the first time I would suggest, in order to get used to the movement, do it without weight. I have here very little weight, it's 1 kilo. And first couple of times I would suggest you do it 1 arm at a time, and then you can do both at the same time once you get used to what it feels like. For me, I feel it here and a little bit like in the inner, under the inner elbow here in the forearm. So the movement is something like this. If you use too much weight too soon, you will kind of see that your elbow starts getting up. Just try to just keep it down. You're not even pushing, just as a reminder. So it's just kinesthetic reminder that you should just keep it down. But it doesn't make any sense if you're kind of pushing it up and then pushing it down. Just don't lift the elbow. And you can do, anywhere between, I would suggest 3 times 12 is a good start. If later this becomes too easy, maybe 3 times 20. And once 3 times 20, you can barely feel it, then you can maybe, this is like 1 kilo, get it to 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos and so on. But the weight is not important. The important thing is that you feel it in the right place and you get it working. So this is the first variation, of course with the other hand as well. So eventually it would look something like this. Now the second variation, you're gonna have your hand, you twist it 180, and then you have your palms facing forward, and then the weights are rolling down your fingers. Be careful with your feet. Get them out of the way if you don't trust yourself not to kind of drop them and crash over your toes. And then you're gonna kind of roll them up with the same kind of logic that you're not breaking the line, the imaginary line between your elbow and your wrist. So you're not doing this. This is forcing it. You're just getting to center line and doing it very, very slowly. You're not cranking out reps like a madman trying to chase a pump. You're just doing like slowly. Again, 3 times 12 I think is a good start, and then slowly evolve to 3 times 20. Once you get to 3 times 20 with the current weight and it's like too easy, you can bump up the weight a little bit. All right, so that's about the forearms. One exercise is like this, and the other exercise is like this. And now we're gonna do some biceps, which is, if you're not familiar, it's this part. So when you do this, the part that is on top, it's a fairly small muscle. And I would use, first couple of times, don't use very much weight at all. Like maybe 1-2 kilos if you've never done this exercise before. You can even do it a couple of times without weight,
just to see if you feel anything. And for me, I think like an easy weight is 6 kilos. And then the idea, I got this from Elite FTS, so shout out to them. And let's say you're hanging your dumbbells here, and then you want to externally rotate the shoulder. So you have this here, and then you're kind of, let's say you have you're gonna face the palm forward. So you're externally rotating the shoulder. So you're gonna have the dumbbells hanging, and then you're gonna externally rotate, and then once you're there, then you start pumping out. So let's say we're here, first palms forward, and then you do some reps. And I feel like this engages the biceps way better. And you do here, let's say 3 times 12, something like that. If it's too much weight, drop to something lower. If you know the minimum weight is too much, then do it without weights. So if that's too difficult for you, what you can do, you can use one of this. It's not like a loop, it's just like a rope, so to speak. And you would put them on your feet, and then you would kind of do the same exercise. You can need to find kind of the right pressure, and then once you find the right pressure, you do the same thing. Externally rotate, and then up, up, up. You can also do it with like if you have a looped one, you can also do it. If you put your feet on at the bottom of the like this here, I don't even know. And then you go up. So same, externally rotate the hands, and then up, up, up. All right, so next we're gonna do some triceps. And my favorite way to do this is with bands. And I have a bunch of bands here. What you do is you kind of like you put your hands inside of the band, and then you pass it under your back, something like this. And then you just lie down. It's almost like a bench press setup, if you're familiar with that, where you get your upper back there, and then just crank out reps. It's kind of like a bench press with bands. And then you're here. What you want is kind of like not necessarily close to your body, not all the way out 90 degrees, but you want kind of like something in the middle. I think about 45 degrees to your torso, so about yay. And then you just crank out reps. You can also, modify a bit, like make it more inefficient, like instead of just straight up, just make it a little bit towards your head. And go by feel, really. Go by feel. You can straighten your legs if you want. And I would just go for the pump here, because the good thing about this is that as opposed to, a bench press with a barbell or dumbbells or whatever, like the good thing about the band is the higher you go, the more like pressure you have to like exert against, almost more force you have to exert. So I feel like it doesn't really hurt my elbows as much as barbell stuff or dumbbell stuff and so on. So I think this is really good to get a pump going and get a little bit of development in your triceps. Of course, if you at some point you feel like this isn't enough like stimuli, you can of course change the weights and go by feel. But I like this a lot. In terms of reps, I would suggest 3 times 12 again. And when you get really good at that, you can even do 3 times 20. And then once you get really good at 3 times 20, bump up the weight or the tension. That's it. That's it for the bands. Well, next is a stretch I really love, which is just hanging from a pull-up bar. And in this case, you have kind of like the regular pull-up bar, which is kind of like this or like that. And then you have a more neutral one if you have it available. I prefer it. You can hang for, as long as you can. I would say 3 sets of hanging as long as you can. And I think it's really good for your back and stretching out after a long day at work, if you're sitting on a desk and just like all crumbled up, I think this helps a lot to stretch and to also to gain strength in your fingers and grip in order to hang, and also endurance, and I think mental toughness in general of just hanging on, wanting to let go, but just don't. And let's do an example here. So I have here with the neutral. I really like it. It's better on your shoulders. And let's hang as long as I can. You can stay still. Maybe this is the easier. But once you start getting a little bit more proficient as this, you can, start moving there as if you were walking on clouds. You can keep your legs forward. You can kind of keep them backwards. I think something important to note is the following. Like when you're hanging from a pull-up bar, I think most people, what they do is this. I don't know if you see it clearly. So they put this part up towards the ceiling. And the problem with this, if you hang like this for a long time, you see your hand has like a mark here across the middle. And the problem is that it will start kind of, the bar will start kind of like drifting, like your hand will start drifting, and you're kind of like, and you're gonna end up here. And actually it's easier if to begin with to just start set up like this. And for the first, few times it's gonna be very hard to maintain because you're not very strong in this position. But then once you do it, it will look like this. I don't know if you can spot it with the light, that I have like a mark, like you can see basically the blood flow lacking in here as well as here. I can see it quite clearly. Let's see if you can see something like this. Yeah. While as in the other case, you would have it over here. And again, if you do it like this, with this part of your hand pointing to the ceiling, then inevitably the hand will kind of like drift away. And it kind of hurts when your hand is kind of like drifting while it's grabbing onto something, and will end up in its proper position. So just start here and then you will learn and get better at it. Let's do another set here. This time I'm gonna do it with a horizontal bar. If you can wrap up this type of bands that have grip, you can do it. You can use a sports tape, like for example, athletic tape, like for ice hockey, for example. You can tape your pull-up bar if that helps you. And also I like to put the thumb over the bar. That helps me. So instead of kind of like, let's see, let's give you another example. So another detail is that instead of doing this, the thumb under, when you have the overhand, I like to do it thumb over. So instead of under, over.
This is the best movement / stretch I have ever found from the internet. This is just something else. So big shout out to the original video, Novel Movements for the Hand, Wrist and Elbow, posted 11 years ago by Forward Motion PT YouTube channel. They haven't been really active lately. I even tried to check on their blog and they haven't posted anything recently, but seriously, give this a try. I think this is the most accessible exercise in this whole series because you don't really need anything. You don't need any equipment. You just need to sit down. You can even sit on the floor and just follow along. I decided to record this again because I think it's very useful to watch the original so you get an idea of the explanations and the right way to do things. But I think there was value. I basically recorded this for myself as well, so I would have something to lean on and just follow along. Sometimes when you watch YouTube videos and you get some nice sequence and you watch the same video again and again and again, and it gets really old to have the same breaks and the same explanations and the same commentary. The epitome of this for me was at the beginning of my fitness kind of like path. I was watching and follow along like P90X videos, which were really easy to follow. But at some point, the jokes and the comments of the main guy get so old. It was kind of like both hilarious and I was like, oh, it's kind of like this loop of a grind, always listening to the same thing again and again and again. It was just driving me insane. So that's why I created this follow along. I don't have much to add other than that than just stare at the screen and mimic what I'm doing in this video. Maybe I'll post a follow along that doesn't even have commentary, so you don't have to mute this, but I think this should get you going. And if this is you were in a hurry and this is the first thing that you watch from this whole series, maybe bookmark it or save it for later and then watch the rest, because I think this is very good. I think this helps a lot, but I think strengthening the muscles can also help a lot. So I suggest you do both. So do this for starting out and getting yourself out of the ditch, but then later on, please do strengthen the rest of your muscles.
All right, so that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed our whole workout we've been doing here. So we have, again, what do you want when you have any type of like wrist or elbow pain? You want to cover your bases with all the muscles that are around the joint. So we covered the forearms, doing this type of stuff. Imaginary line here that you don't need to cross. Don't do this, do this. Then turn around, roll it to your fingers. Be careful with the feet, get them out of the way. Then you're gonna do biceps. Then the bands on the floor, you can do this kind of like simulated bench press for triceps, or you can use a triceps pull down machine if you have something available like that. Then I want you to stretch in the pull-up bar and hang as long as you can. Just count the time, write it down so you can later compare it 3 times as long as you can. At least once a week. If you can do 3 times a week or every day, that's great. But at least 1 or twice a week, I think is like a good measure, a good goal to aim at. And that's it. I hope you had fun. I hope it was useful. Best of luck in your recovery and getting better. I hope you get rid of the pain. I managed to get rid of the pain after. It took many months, I think up to a year, I think, if I remember correctly. And of course, sometimes it comes and goes. But in general, I'm relatively pain-free, so I wish that for you. If you have any questions, fire up below. If you haven't checked it out already, go ahead and check out the tools that help me, because I think this is half the battle. The exercises are half the battle in terms of stretches and strengthening exercises, but it's also very important that if you're like having a desk job and everything you do is just sitting by the computer, then you want to have the best tools available in order to do your work properly and not exacerbate the pain and make it worse. And that means, there's a whole video about that, but it was basically about mechanical keyboards that require very little pressure to use with the fingers. Another one was a mouse that allows you not to cock your wrist back, and so on and so forth, and as well as automation tools to make you have do less shortcuts that crumble up your fingers. Take care. Bye-bye.